Right, guys, I'm going to just kick things off here. My name is Seamus Conboy from Red Flag. I'm going to be moderating today. We're very glad to have our guests here, hosted by two MEPs, Ilan Kuchuk and Nadja Hirsch, who are hosting today in collaboration with the EU40 network and also with Create Refresh, an initiative of creators. And we have a representative from Create Refresh here, Julien Stark, a French filmmaker who's going to be sharing his experiences with us. In terms of format, we're going to ask each of the speakers to say a few words in turn before turning the floor over to you guys for some questions. One quick note, our press statement or our media notice did say that filming would not be permitted. That was an error on our part. Filming is of course permitted, so please go ahead and do that. I'm conscious that nobody's here to hear from me, so I think what I'll do straight away is turn the floor over to a man who needs pretty much no introduction, a multi-Grammy award-winning artist who has more hits than I can count or remember, Wyclif Jean.
Feels like the Grammys. Please feel free to share this with everyone. First, of course, I want to thank Create Refresh for having me, EU40. And, of course, I want to thank all the members of the press. It's really an honor to come here today. I'm on my way to Switzerland. And history is important. For me, what Europe has done for me, for different artists that I've watched through the years, I don't think the Fugees would have ever been the Fugees without Europe. So I owe all of the artists 8 minutes just to share a story, which I feel is very important. So for me, I'm no stranger to legislation. I was born in Haiti. I ran to become president of my country. Before I ran, I used to testify in Congress. I helped my country pass a bill which was called the Hope Bill. It was a textile bill which would bring more jobs to the country. So I'm not here to speak as someone who just woke up and had an epiphany and says, let me talk about copyrights. I'm here as someone who can go toe-to-toe on legislation on anything y'all like to talk about. In saying that, if you saw my iPad, like, I started on one side of the fence because, I feel like I'm the perfect person to talk to you because I'm the guy who wrote Hips Don't Lie, which is one of the biggest copyrights of the entire world. I'm the guy who wrote Maria Maria, Carlos Santana, one of the biggest copyrights in the world. So, yeah, I started off on the side of saying, I don't want nobody touching my music. Like, if you want to touch Wyclef music, contact my publishers, or I don't want to hear guitar lick. Y'all got to pay me for all that. So I want to start by saying, what happened? Like, what happened? So a few things happened. After I ran for president, coming back to the States, after helping my friend get elected in Haiti, I came back to America. The entire technology changed. The whole music scenery changed. So me as an audio engineer, I watched the conversion of it go from hardware to software, and everything was so every patch bay became a plugin. I went to Sweden. I spent a lot of time with my good friend, Avicii, R.I.P., who passed away. And we show up at the studio. I show up with a guitar. Avicii shows up with a computer. And I said, okay, times would definitely have changed. Within this concept, we started sharing music and information. And I noticed how fast he was with the amount of information that he has. So after we worked on a few projects together, coming back to the States, I embarked on a small tour which was called the Carnival Tour. So the idea of this tour, I said, man, I got to level out the playing field, because I feel if someone has 100 million views, and then they could be a Kendrick Lamar, and then another kid has 5 views, right? At the end of the day, if I put them on the same hot beat, and they both are great rappers, they both should have that equal platform to get to each other. And I was like, whoa, how do I level the playing field? So what I said was, well, let's do an experiment. So what I did was, on the Carnival tour, we would recruit college students from all over the country. So the tour was at night. So during the day, I would go to what I would call Wyclif Battle of the Stages. So in the Battle of the Stages, these kids would come and compete. So whoever is winning will be on the next Wyclef project, which is called Wyclef Goes Back to School. But they will be on a tape now where the landscape is balanced, because you will have people that are famous on this, people that's not famous, production from all sides. So what I noticed was the questions that I started to get from these students. And this is what made me started turning my thinking around. So one student is like, look, man, I'm a big fan of Wyclef. I'm a big fan of Jay-Z, you know. But, dog, I'm a college student, man. These loans is killing me. But I just want to sample y'all music, and I just need y'all to listen to the music. Do I got to pay for that? This is what I've been hearing across the entire country. So what has been going on is, through discovery, as we enter the future, it is going to be impossible for us to move towards the future, because it's no longer about me. It's about, where's the next Beyonce? You know, where's the next Wyclef? You know, where's the next Tim? Where's the next Avicii? And I think in order to find that, you have to leave the discovery open. I feel that we're gifted with so much. How hard is it? I already own the copyright. So, and moving into the future, if a kid decides like he's going to do a version of Maria Maria, I would like to see 100,000 kids do that version of Maria Maria. Because at the end of the day, who knows, from one of these kids, we might find the next Carlos Santana. We might find that, because this generation moves in the sense of everything that they want it now, they want it real time. So for me, my idea changed because I can see it naturally happening real time through the high schools and through the university. But at the same time, if we close it out, we're gonna lose a lot of talent that we find from discovery. I'm gonna make one last point. So when the Fugees was coming out, 40 record companies passed on the Fugees. Why? Because they were looking for whatever was the next thing on the radio, and we just happened to be different. And these people are A&Rs. Man, let me tell you, A&Rs and record companies are the worst in the world, because all they doing is trying to find out what's the thing. But do you know what I remember in that lesson? I was like, if we had YouTube back then, right? Then what we did? So we would perform before Biggie Smalls, KRS-One, and I could keep going. And so right before we would go on, the way a lot of times we get kicked off a stage is, if I'm going to perform before you, just before we go off, we're going to do a cover of your song, and literally your bodyguard's going to come throw us off the stage, right? And then the crowd says, who was these kids that was singing this song better than the next person that's about to go on? Oh, they said, this is a small group called the Fugees. Imagine, this is before we had the technology. So I feel, moving towards the future, that if we give these kids a chance to showcase on the biggest platforms in the world, what we will do is the idea of discovery will continue to be bigger, and it will be vast, and it will be open. So for me, I feel that I did start on one side of the fence. So that's why I'm perfect for this. And the conversion of going to the other side of the fence has been me seeing the cry to college kids, to kids in universities, real time, saying, man, we like your song. Why can't you cover it? The last case study, I will say, mark this in history. So there's a group of girls from Texas, they call the Isaac sisters. The smallest one is 14, 15, and 17. And we just signed them, right? How did I find them? I found them because someone says, look, there is these 3 little girls online in Wyclif. They're singing covers better than Destiny Child, like when you work with Beyonce and them. I said, what? Who are they? I go on their Instagram, I go on their YouTube. They're singing Wyclef. They're singing Jay-Z. They're singing Lauryn Hill. They're singing Alicia Keys. And they're out of Texas. So all of a sudden, I go ahead and I sign them, which is very important. And the idea of how is content like really controlled? There is a group from Ghana by the name of Fuse. They have a record called Antenna, the Afrobeat movement. If you don't know, get with it, baby. Let me see y'all move your hips. Don't get scared. Right? So the Afrobeats movement is a beat throughout Africa, which is incredible. Now watch this last case study. This group lives in England. They open up for me. I love the group. In the process of them opening up for me, we go to after party. They say, Wyclef, can you join us on this remix? Right, real time. I go in their room, I cut the remix. The next day, they go, Clef, we know you leaving, but we want to shoot your part of the video. What? Like, they bring the camera. This is how the kids operate right now, real time. Yo, go ahead, say your part. I can't remember. Do anything, Clef, we got you. Okay, have a nice day. They take this content. Before I land in New York City, this thing is uploaded on YouTube. Goes from 1 million views to now, I think, like 40 million views on YouTube. If I was like, man, no, listen, guys, no, there's a law, you guys can't do this. What happened is now these kids are not only successful in England. Y'all could look them up. They're called Fuse. They went back to their country in Ghana and started a movement which is called the Tina movement, the New Africa movement, working with different kids in different foundations. So I rest my case. I just felt like it was more important that I came and just shared, a testimony which was personal as someone who was on one side of the fence and what made me go to the other side of the fence as we look towards the future. So here's the Wyclef quote. Y'all could use it, but be careful. It's still copywritten, right? I never forget the past, but I live in the present just so that I could see the future. And I want to thank y'all. So if somebody else don't get the mic, I'm going to start singing. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Wyclif, and we might take you up on the offer to sing in a moment, but before we do that, we might hear from our hosts, and first we'll hear now from Nadia Hirsch, MEP. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming, and thanks to you for explaining your point of view. I think that's so important because we politicians always talking in the plenary about that, and we have a political view on that. And also one of our duties is also to have the worst case in mind and looking at the situation in Europe. We are dealing with more and more anti-democratic forces and questioning our core values. So looking at these developments, we as liberals questioning what could happen in the future, like you said, have always the future in mind. And that's the reason why we refuse upload filter, which are the core issue of Article 13. And more or less upload filters are nothing else than recognition software that filters out specific content. And what we are thinking about is we don't want to open the Pandora's box because this will provide the basis for a censorship structure which can be extended at every time in the future. And so that's the reason why we start probably right now if we have these upload filters with copyright infringements. But tomorrow we don't know what other issues will be filtered out. And that's the reason why we as liberals really refuse this upload filters. And it's a completely different view on that, but I think that makes the whole picture to see what is the view of the point of view of musicians, artists, but also from the politicians fighting for democracy. And I want to hand over to my colleague. He also is from the Liberals, and I think you have also a view on that.
We'll hand over now to our other host, who's MEP Ilyan Kuchuk, who will provide his perspective as well. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for being with us. And I would like to welcome Wyclif Jean for being with us today and then sharing his own concerns. Of course, we care about artists and creators. That's why we invited one of the best among us today to show his perspective. But we care about expression, and we care about fundamental human rights, and that's why we think that we couldn't find the balanced approach between fundamental freedoms and the right of creators and artists. We should try in a better way. I think there is time to sit and discuss in a more professional way with a rapporteur, but also with other colleagues. Together with my colleague Nadia Hirsch, we already signed many amendments which are moderate, progressive, and I think we can find a better balance with them, which is based on human fundamental values on one hand, and on the other hand, how to secure the living of creators and artists. This is the key message from my side. That's why we are opposing Article 13, because personally I don't see any guarantees for fundamental freedoms if we accept as it's written so far.
Thank you very much, and we're going to open the floor to questions from journalists in just one moment, but before we do, our final contributor is Julian Stark. Julian is a French writer and filmmaker. He's recently produced a documentary on the French electro movement called French Wave, which I'd encourage you to check out. Julien, please.
Hello. So I would like to, of course, thanks everybody that invited us today. And it's a bit funny because I feel like I am the, underground artist Wyclef told about. It's I think that Article 13 is a threat to our everyday life as artists and creators. I think that at the moment we have a direct link with our audiences, and it's really important to keep this link. It's important that we can communicate and share our creations all over the world, and it's true in music, but it's also true in films, in street art, in many different artistic fields. And I hope it will continue to be as it is today, and I think it's important to let the underground scene evolve before it reaches a wider audience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julian. And as I said, we're going to turn the floor over now to the journalists in the room who might have some questions for our panel. We'll take, I think, 3 or 4 questions in a group and allow the panellists to respond to them straight away. So if you would indicate, and before you start to speak, then give us your name and the media you're from. Thanks very much.
Hello, Christopher Wendick, Swedish Public Television. Big world stars like yourself, Wyclif, might have not that much to lose, as you were explaining. But what about other artists that are not yet on that level? Sharing their work without getting much or anything in reward.
we might take a couple of questions together, if that's okay. Catherine?
Catherine Fiore, EU reporter. I was going to ask a similar question. I mean, it's all very well to suggest that, but I mean, people need to sort of eat and have a roof over their head. And so, what can you do to help make sure that younger artists don't get just the possibility for freedom of expression, but also can earn a living from that as well? Also, can I ask you, I mean, you named your group Fugees. We're dealing with a migrant crisis here in Europe. Would you have any words of advice on welcoming and integration of refugees in Europe?
We'll take one more question and then we'll answer all those together to see.
Yeah, I just was wondering, Alexander Fante from German outlet netzpolitik.org. I was just wondering, Wyclif, what your proposals are to help young musicians other than fixing copyright, and what the idea is to do more for that.
Okay. Thank you very much. We go to Wyclif first to respond to those questions.
Microphone check 1 2. Okay, so thanks for the questions. I'll start backwards. My proposal for artists. One of the things is my role model is Quincy Jones. He's like my godfather. Quincy has a phrase. It's called global gumbo. So what I've been, one of my favorite shows in England is Jules Holland. So I've been proposing a platform that we could use through social media, which can start to expose artists in a different way. So one of the things that I've already started doing is building out this platform. So through Global Gumbo, I plan to continue to balance out the playing field. And I think it starts with this Wyclef Goes Back to School. So this is, one of the things is, me as one of the forefront leaders of music from my era, it's important that we create this platform. So that's one of the things that I'm working on. There's another, I don't know if you're familiar with Fiverr. Fiverr is another app that you should look at. They're doing real great things with young independent artists. So what we're going to do is continue to build this platform. So look out for it. It's called Global Gumbo. And in this platform, we plan to balance out the playing field to bring artists like the Fugees, different artists that the A&R said would never sell a record, to give them a platform and you decide if they're dope or not. You know what I mean? That's one thing. All right. So let me talk to the artists, right? Me and DJ Khaled, right, my good friend, we used to sell records from the back of our trunk, right? So what I like to tell the artists, so when we say, Wyclef, you're already fortunate, dude, like, it's fine, you own all of this copyright, but how do you level the playing field for someone who doesn't? Exposure. The more exposure the artist gets, the more, it's almost like taking this concept of like selling cars in the trunk. So if I was to tell the artist, do you really understand the power of your YouTube? And do you understand the tools that you can use? I think that there's actually more things that YouTube can do to actually show artists, like, you know, take this whole like spooky thing, like, yo, you don't get paid or whatever, show them how to use their channel. So what I've been doing for younger artists that are less fortunate than me, I basically have been showing them how to use I was just at a YouTube tutorial like 3 weeks ago. There's so much tools that they can use where you can have your own channel, you can book your own shows. So once again, what I'm doing is I'm not just saying it. I'm showing artists different ways and platforms that as they move towards the future, that they actually can benefit from this. Because at the end of the day, the wave is constantly going to keep going. And I feel that the best thing that an independent artist have, the best chance of success is sharing. The best chance of success any artist have, whether if they're big or they're little, is the idea, I'll send you something. If you like it, you'll send it to him. He'll send it to her. That's what we used to do in the car trunk. So I would stop, and so it wasn't like out of nowhere Wyclef just blew up. It was like, so I would take the same thing, but all we had was a trunk and a CD. But now we don't have that. We actually have tools. So I think that a lot of the artists are misinformed on the amount of tools that they actually can use. So I hope that even the new platform that I'm creating, it definitely helps with that and bring more light to that. As far as like refugees, I am not here to talk politics, but it's very important that we understand who we are in the world. My group, Fugees, is short for refugees. And the idea of me creating refugees and making it the sexiest thing in the world, right, was we wanted people from all parts of the world to have a sense of belonging. And the day that we feel that we can't invite people in a harmonious nature will be the day that we lose our sensibility of our soul. That's how I feel about the refugee.
Thanks very much, guys. The room is about to be taken over, so we're going to wrap now. Just to note that Wyclif will be proposing a toast this evening at 8 p.m. in room WIC 100 on the ground floor here, so you can see him again then. Thanks very much.
The good one.